certainly it's good to be with Chief Fenner and then with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. It's good to be with her at all times, so thank you so very much. At the end of April, I announced plans to implement several recommendations submitted by the Mayor's Task Force on Policing Reform. I'm grateful that City Council passed the fiscal year 2022 budget yesterday to include more funding for crisis intervention programs, to hire additional counselors, and increase the number of mobile crisis outreach teams and citywide domestic abuse response teams. I'm optimistic that some of these resources will prevent some bad incidents from me getting even worse. So I'm real pleased with that particular focus. Another part of the recommendations focused on changing, well, even before I get to the body-worn cam. Then, of course, this week, the beginning of this week, we made live the 5 different dashboards that provide more information, more transparency. So I'm pleased with how that has come online and is being rolled out. Another part of the recommendations focused on changing the Houston Police Department's policy on releasing videos taken from an officer's body-worn cameras. As I said at the time, the policy would be effective from that point on, and HPD would increase the timely release of body-worn cam videos to be transparent and accountable to the general public. Chief Fenner has implemented the new HPD body policy on body-worn cameras to allow for the release of video within 30 days in incidents that resulted in the injury or death. We said 30 days at the latest, sooner. So today we're keeping that promise and releasing video from the first officer-involved shooting that happened after the new policy became effective. May 21st, about 2 weeks ago, several Houston police officers were involved in another vehicular stop, when another person approached them after that stop occurred. He approached the police officers. They asked him to show his hands. A gun was pulled, a shot was fired, and then the police officers returned fire. Chief Fenner will provide more details shortly about that particular incident, which occurred on May 21st. But the point that I want to stress, we said that we would put forth these reforms, we would make these reforms and move forward, and especially as it relates to transparency, and this is another step in effectuating those reforms. So having said that, Chief Fenner, let me yield to you.
Thank you, Mayor. And as the Mayor said, we're keeping our word. We stood before City Council and the citizens of Houston and told them the new policy, and we're here today to make sure that we carry out that. Our goal is to release the videos as quickly as we can, knowing that the scenes will be much longer. Some scenes will be much longer. It is our hope that this 9-minute video capturing the shooting on May 21st at 9400 block of Bissonnet, that the community sees how quickly events like these can happen. After the press conference is concluded, we will be putting up all body-worn camera footage on YouTube channel and providing the community with a link to watch any and all of the video of the incident. I want to extend my condolences to the Gillott family. Anytime we lose a life, we regret it, regardless of the circumstances. I'm not here to put my opinion out. Just want the citizens to see this. But let's not forget, on this particular incident, this suspect did point and fire upon our officers before they fired upon him. As I said, once we put this up, the goal is for citizens to come to their own opinion. The job of a police leader is to look at these encounters and determine where the actions of an officer or the officers, were they objectively reasonable, given the circumstances of what the officers faced. It's important to note that the investigation into the shooting is still in the early stages. Our Special Investigative Unit, Harris County DA's office, and our Internal Affairs Division will be completing the investigation. It will take a very extensive look into the tactics, the training opportunities based on each incident. each incident is very dynamic. I'm going to stop here and yield. I want our Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee to come up and have a few words, and followed by that, we'll view the tape.
Thank you very much, Chief Fenner. And Mayor, thank you so very much. As the chair of the Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives Judiciary Committee, I can truly say to both the mayor and to Chief Fenner that you are innovators in the process of criminal justice reform. There is a very significant percentage of jurisdictions across America that do not have body cameras, do not have that capacity. And then there are significant jurisdictions that are not releasing body cam to the general public. So this is an enormous step forward, and particularly as this language is in the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which has not yet passed the United States Senate, and the timeliness on which this is being released is also innovative and important to democracy and civil liberties. Mayor, I want to applaud the City Council and you for the intervention that was part of the budget with respect to the rising violence that is not only here in Houston, gun violence in particular, but across the nation. And one of the things that Congress has decided is that it's not only the stopping of gun violence and the use of guns, but it is also, if you will, the idea of intervening on young people who have been brought up on gun culture and think that there's nothing but to use it, even as early as 14-year-olds. So this work has to be done. Finally, let me as well offer my sympathy to the family of the deceased and be able to say that if we are going to work together for a criminal justice system that, one, protects each and every one of us, our dignity, our humanity, our safety and our security, our families and our children, then we must have the kind of thinking that brings about the work that your criminal justice task force did. My commitment is to provide the federal leverage, both in funding, the cops on the beat, which is funding that still exists, but more importantly, the intervention dollars that will help with juveniles and as well with a gun culture, to give you those resources added to your own material resources. Finally, let me say that I will, as a citizen, look forward to viewing this particular video, and will assess it as a citizen, but also be able to continue to work for the kind of community that we all seek to have, and it is one of harmony and one of humanity and one of mutual respect. Thank you so very much, Mayor, for this effort. Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you. So we're going to start the video. I think it's a little over 9 minutes, and then we'll address and entertain questions following it.
I'm Assistant Chief Heather Morris of the Houston Police Department's Criminal Investigations Command. This critical incident briefing is intended to provide you with information about an officer-involved shooting that occurred in Houston on May 21, 2021. You are about to see video footage that is related to the case. HPD conducts thorough investigations into officer-involved shootings. These typically require investigators to interview multiple witnesses, view numerous hours of video footage, and analyze a significant amount of forensic evidence. It is important to note, we are in the very early stages of the investigation, and we continue to process additional evidence as it is collected, analyzed, and reviewed. A word of caution, the videos you are about to see can be graphic and may be difficult to watch. In addition, these videos may contain strong language, and viewer discretion is advised. At about 1:24 a.m., HPD officers assigned to the South Gessner Division initiated a traffic stop in the 9400 block of Bissonnet. Approximately 22 minutes later, while officers were interviewing the occupants of the vehicle, a male, Zaquan Gullett, walked towards them from across the street. Sergeant Ricardo Rivera walked towards Mr. Gullett and asked, "Do you know them? Do you need something?"
You know them? You need some?
Mr. Gullett continued to approach the officers with his hands in his pockets and said, "Shoot me." Sergeant Rivera asked Mr. Gullett, "Why are you saying that?" Sergeant Rivera drew his gun and gave Mr. Gullett verbal commands to show his hands. Sergeant Rivera told Mr. Gullett to put the gun down. Other officers on the scene of the traffic stop also gave commands to drop the gun. Mr. Gullett pointed the gun at the officers and fired. Sergeant Rivera, Officer Colby Samashula, Officer Ricky McLemore, and Officer Moises Alfaro discharged their duty weapons.
What's that? Shoot. Shoot you? Shoot. Why are you saying that? Shoot. Hey man, why are you talking like that? Bro, why are you talking like that? Get your hands out your pocket. Shoot. Get your hand out your pocket. Shoot. Hey, what's in your hand? Bro, put the gun down. Put the gun down. Put the gun. All right, cut it. Shots fired on this traffic stop over here with 17E30. It's gonna be unrelated. Are y'all okay?
Check me, bro. Did he get a shot off?
Yes, he did. Y'all okay?
Shots fired. All right? Everybody's all right?
Hey, is he hit?
I don't know if he's hit, Sarge.
Mills, is he hit?
Anybody hit? Nobody hit.
Officer, okay. Suspect's down.
Stay right there. Don't move.
We have the event.
Yeah. Okay, HPD to his location.
All right. Hey, slowly. Hey. This way.
I got you. 9400 Bissonnet. Any more units of 9400?
Slowly. Hey, get in line. Slow down. Get in line. Shoulder to shoulder.
Behind you, Sarge.
Okay. Get in line with me. Don't get behind me. Get in line with me.
In line with you.
That's good. Is she breathing?
Still breathing. Where's the gun?
Okay. He's still breathing.
Should be right there.
We're approaching.
Don't move. Do not move. Do not move. Stay still. Do not move.
Where's the gun? Where's the gun?
I don't know.
Okay.
Behind him.
Okay.
Don't move. Do not move. Do not move.
Secure it. Okay.
Come secure it.
Y'all come on.
Project, shot to 9400 Bissonnet suspect.
Who does? Grab it. Hey, put your hands out. Get your hands out your pocket.
Get down.
Oh gosh, what do we got here? Bro, hey, put your hand down. Put your hand.
All right. She's fine. Get down. Are y'all okay?
Hey, check me, bro. Did he get a shot off?
He got one shot. Y'all all right?
He's pointing at me, dude.
Everybody's all right? We good. I don't know if he's hit, Sarge.
Hey, sit down.
Was he hit? Anybody hit?
Nobody hit.
Hey,
I'm good.
Nobody hit.
Nobody's hit. Oh gosh, what we got here?
Put your hand down. All right.
She's fine.
Get down.
Are y'all okay?
Check me, bro. Did he get a shot off?
Yeah, he's shot.
Y'all all right?
Hey, Colt.
Everybody's all right?
We're good. We're good.
I don't know if he's hit, Sarge.
Hey, sit down. Anybody hit? Nobody hit. Nobody hit.
Hey, is he hit? I'm good. Is he hit?
No. Nobody's hit. Nobody's hit. Hey, put your hands out. Get your hands out.
Get down, get down, get down, get down. Get down, get down. Do not move. Do not move.
Okay.
Gun secured.
Y'all come out.
He's got a first aid kit.
Officers rendered first aid until Houston Fire Department paramedics arrived and transported Mr. Gullett to the hospital, where he was pronounced deceased. A gun and a spent ammunition casing were located next to Mr. Gullett.
I'm not gonna comment on that right now. I said, and I want to be going forward because we're gonna release these things. I want to be really careful and respect family members, our officers, and other citizens until this investigation is complete. Then that's when I'll make that statement on that. Today, I want to celebrate us keeping our word, and as a community, we're releasing this, and I think that's a good thing for everybody. Ted, you never know what's going on in people in their minds, but ideally, you want people to be objective and see it from all sides. And when there's an officer-involved shooting, it's so tragic for everybody involved, regardless of what happens. So look at it objectively and make sure that we have healing in our community, and make sure people come to the truth. And because different people carry different narratives that causes problems. That's what frustrates me. But every person has the right to think what they want to. But we're going to do the right thing in Houston up under the mayor's leadership, releasing this. And we've been saying this, and today it's here. You call it as it is, man. I'm not here as a chief to take up for anybody. I'm a straight shooter. And that's what people know me to be for 54 years in Houston, 31 years as a police officer. If the police officers are wrong, they're wrong. If the citizen is wrong, they're wrong. And we're just going to call them as we see them. Now, I think there's lessons learned, because you know that we look at critically every shooting incident. So whatever we can do to prevent those shootings, that's what we want to do. The sanctity of life is the most important thing. They're still on administrative duty. We want to make sure that everything is okay with them before we put them back on the line, and we have a process and policy on that. So they're not back on right now. It's just been I'm a little sleep deprived. I think it's been right over two weeks, or right at 2 weeks. Yeah. Okay.
And how many were there?
It's 4 officers. Yeah. I just want to celebrate it. I think our citizens have been asking for it. The mayor promised it, and it's here. I don't think it changes anything. It's just a move forward. That's what we said we were going to do, and there was a lot of talk. Y'all know that. Like we're not going to release it, but we're going to release it. Mayor, do you want to say something?
What it does do, and I think what's important, and what we've learned from all over the country, it's important for us to be transparent. It's important for us to make the information available, because what happens sometimes is that when information is not made available, then people assume that something must have been wrong, or we're hiding something. By coming forth and releasing these videos within 30 days, and as you can see, even sooner than 30 days, this happened on May 21st, so let's say 2 weeks ago. It's about establishing the trust between the community and our police officers. And we have 5,300 police officers who are patrolling 640 square miles. The police officers need the community, and the community need the police officers. And in order to enhance and have a positive relationship transparency is a key component of that, and winning people's trust. So hopefully, and again, my condolences go out even to the person who lost his life. But hopefully this will let people know that in this city, we're going to do as best we can to establish that trust and build a positive relationship between the police and the community, because quite frankly, one can't live without the other. Okay? Thank you all.
The mayor talked about the trust building, and that's huge. But also it gives people a different perspective to see how things can happen in a split-second decision, and our officers have to make those decisions. And it's not as easy as people think. And I know it's tragic when anybody is seriously hurt or lose their life, but that's policing. And we want to make sure those numbers go down. We do everything we can, but this is a violent nation right now. Anytime a citizen gets killed in our city, it's a problem. The homicide numbers are up just as any other city, major city right now. And we're not going to use that as an excuse. I was talking to the mayor and and let me thank our executive team for being here. We had a meeting just before we came in here. I don't want to use the excuse of what's going on in other areas, in other cities. We're the city of Houston, and we want to be the best that we can do. So you asked what we've done. We've moved troops around. We increased our homicide investigators. We did a lot of different things, but I said that I wouldn't be negative on other parts of the criminal justice system, and I'm gonna hold my word. But let me tell you something. When you don't have trials for 2 years and you got all these violent criminals out here running around, I'm not blaming anybody right now. COVID rolled in, and before COVID, it was Hurricane Harvey. So I'm not going to let all our officers take that blame, but a lot of great initiatives. And I'll tell you this one thing. I'm not one chief that's going to be telling you everything that we're doing, because crooks look at the news as well, and I want to respectfully say that. We knew, I've been a cop for 31 years, and we know traditionally summer is coming, and I said that in a couple of my interviews, so we know that. Now, let's back up to this past weekend. Have I saw 13 homicides over holiday weekend? No. I think maybe back when I first got on, in the early 90s, late 80s, but I just don't remember it right now in the recent time. So we got to just hang in there as a community. The mayor and our team, we talked about clubs, okay, nightclubs. We're still at the end of a pandemic, so I want to meet with the owners sometime next week, because you cannot have people going into clubs when the violence is up like this and everybody's going in there with guns and you don't have a metal detector or some kind of handling system. And I'm not blaming them. I'm just telling you, I'm the kind of chief that I'm going to try to grab everybody and work together. First, I'm going to hold myself accountable, but everybody else in this picture.
We are still coming out of this coronavirus, but even in this city, in this county, we are having to rebuild the criminal justice ecosystem. Because if you all can recall, after Hurricane Harvey, some of our criminal courts were affected by Harvey and literally shut down. And then over the last 14 months, you have had not many cases at all in the court system. There are about 100,000 cases backlog right now. So you're having to put together now the criminal justice ecosystem, which means you got to have now more jury trials. They've got to open up. City employees, for example, return as of this week. And so it's now time for the whole criminal courthouse system to open up as well, to reduce significantly the backlog. So that's on one front. Then what we are finding, for example, is that you've got gang activity coming from all over, and not just within the United States, but even coming outside. So we're having to deal with that. And a lot that's connected to that is a lot of narcotics and drugs. All of that's played into in the key. And if you notice, we've seen more domestic violence situations than we've seen in the last several years. You've seen more road rage. There are a lot of in different categories where you've seen more than it has ever been on so many different fronts. And so we are having now to really focus in investing in communities, investing in neighborhoods, dealing with people who have lost their jobs, dealing with people who are facing anxiety and stress. That's one of the reasons why, for example, we've a lot of focus on crisis intervention. So there are a lot of elements that we're having to address in order to reduce the criminal element and be laser focused on it. And we're going to have to work our way through it. And it's also going to require the active engagement of people within our community. Now, the reality is, the chief said he didn't want to use that excuse, and I won't use that excuse, but this is not a Houston phenomenon. It is a national phenomenon. And it's happening across the country. Having said that, our primary focus is on the city of Houston. This is where we are. This is what concerns people the most. And so we're being very intentional. That's why City Council voted to add another cadet class. Instead of 5, now there are 6. And then the crisis intervention initiatives and all of the other initiatives that we are putting forth to get through it. We will get through it, but we're going to have to work through it. As we work through the end of this coronavirus and everything else that's been thrown at us, we're going to have to work through it. And it's going to take a little time for that to happen. Well, I won't say that the numbers show that it's not working. It could always be much more worse. So if you're drawing that conclusion, then you're drawing an erroneous assumption, not based on a factual basis, so to speak. It's that there are many different things that are having to take place. There is no one solution. It's going to take a lot of elements in order to address the situation here. You have to invest and rebuild many of these communities and neighborhoods that have been ravaged by coronavirus and so many other elements. So you have to do that. You have to make investments. You have to put people back in a position so they can take care of their families. We do need more mental behavioral health funding. Those things are needed. You had a guy that walks up and said, for whatever, shoot me. So what's the underlying element behind that? So we do need more mental behavior funding. We do need more funding for substance abuse. We're addressing the homelessness issues. Domestic violence is very serious. And when I look at the numbers, and I look at them, for a significant number of cases, especially on these homicides, or when people are either knowing somebody or there's a relationship of some kind there. So let me just say to the general public in the city of Houston, 99% of people in the city of Houston are abiding by the laws, okay? And quite frankly, for a large percentage of the crimes that are taking place in our city, especially as it relates to homicide, it involves people who either know one another or there's some sort of relationship there. So people too have to assume some responsibility, and the whole community must play an active role. But if you ask me whether or not this is a safe city, I'm going to tell you absolutely hell yeah, it's a safe city. Yes, it's a safe city. Now, if you're focusing individually on every single crime that's taking place every day, and if that's what people are constantly hearing, then people are going to assume, oh my God. But for 99% of the people in this city that live in this city, that's doing business in this city, they're fine. They're fine. Now, if you engaged in buying and selling drugs and the transaction goes bad, you should have been doing it in the first place. I started to say something else, but I went to church on Sunday. You shouldn't be doing it in the first place, okay? For people engaged in domestic abuse and violence, no man or woman has the right to victimize or abuse somebody else. So that's a no-no, okay? So when you look at the different categories that I look at every single day, and I look at these numbers every single morning, okay, then you have to target your resources in those particular areas and you move them around. Now, with respect to clubs and nightclubs, I'll go even further than what Chief did, okay? People jam-packed. When you combine guns and booze and people in close proximity, bad things can happen. And so when nightclubs, for example, when they're checking to see whether the male comes in with a gun, but they're not checking to see whether the woman is coming in with the gun. And in some of these cases, the guns are passed to the woman, and they're coming into the gloves, and then they're exchanging. Well, from a city council perspective, we're going to have to take a look at that. Okay. So you do as much as you can. It's not an easy situation. It's not a situation that the police officers are going to be able to get on top of by themselves. The community has to get all the way into this game, which means if you know somebody that's about to commit a crime or has committed a crime, I'm pleading with you to make the information available and then help us to do our jobs. And then we'll have an even safer city, okay?